My brother sold the condo I inherited from Grandma behind my back. But when my lawyer checked the papers, he said, "Foolish boy." The next day, my brother called, and the truth hit him hard. "Foolish boy." That's what my lawyer said after reading the papers my brother forged. I was halfway through my morning latte in Seattle when he told me the beachfront condo my grandmother left me was gone. Sold, signed, stolen. My brother had turned my inheritance into his own jackpot, and the proof was sitting right there in front of him. I didn't scream. I didn't even hang up. I just stared out at the rain hammering against my apartment window, watching droplets race down the glass like they already knew what I was about to do next. Because if my brother thought I'd stay quiet 3,000 kilometers away, he had no idea what silence could become. I used to think distance protected me from family chaos, from their endless judgments, from the unspoken truth that I'd never measure up. Moving to Seattle gave me room to breathe, to create something that was mine alone. My brother Keith stayed behind in Miami, climbed the corporate ladder, became the golden child everyone celebrated at Thanksgiving. Dad practically worshipped him for it. And me, I was the flighty one who chose design school over law school. But there was one person who never made me feel like a disappointment. Grandma Sylvia. She was warmth in a world of cold expectations. Every winter break, she'd make her famous blueberry scones in her kitchen overlooking Biscayne Bay. The ocean breeze would drift through her windows while she shared stories about rebuilding her life after Grandpa passed. "Don't let anyone dim your light, Daniela," she'd say, holding both my hands. "You're meant to shine exactly as you are." That condo wasn't just real estate. It was her heart, a sanctuary filled with her jasmine perfume, her infectious laugh, her unconditional love. When she died, she left me the deed, handwritten and signed in her elegant script. It was her way of saying, I believe in you. Even when nobody else seemed to. After the funeral, Keith handled everything. The memorial service, the legal documents, the estate meetings. He looked so polished in his charcoal suit, shaking hands with distant relatives like a politician instead of a grieving grandson. I thought he was being responsible. Turns out he was orchestrating something far more sinister. Dad used to lecture me over FaceTime. "You should be more like your brother. He has his priorities straight." I'd force a smile, sip my coffee, and let the criticism wash over me. I learned early that fighting for validation in our family was like screaming into a hurricane. Nobody heard you. So when my lawyer called that drizzly Tuesday morning, when he said the condo had already been sold without my knowledge, I felt something inside me crystallize. The shock was sharp, surgical, almost clean. For a moment, I pictured Keith signing those papers with that confident smirk of his, the one he wore when he wanted everyone to think he knew better than they did. I opened my laptop, scrolling through photos until I found one of Grandma and me on that same balcony. Her arm was wrapped around my shoulders. The sunset painted everything gold. My chest tightened. Douglas's voice crackled through my AirPods. "Daniela, something's wrong with these documents," he said carefully. "The notary seals are irregular and the signature looks practiced." I pushed back from my desk, staring at my computer screen in disbelief. "Practiced?" I repeated, though my gut already knew. He hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "Foolish boy," he muttered quietly. Not at me, but at whoever thought they could pull this off. "Your brother must have forged these papers." Those 3 words, "foolish boy," hit me harder than he intended. They echoed in my mind, twisting and sharpening with each repetition. To Douglas, it was just an observation. To me, it was validation. Keith thought I was too naive, too far away, too trusting to catch on. Maybe I had been once. Not anymore. I minimized the call and opened my email archive. There it was, the scanned copy of Grandma's will that Douglas had sent last spring. The signature on the property transfer looked similar, but not quite right. The curves were too angular, the pressure inconsistent. Keith always wrote with too much force. He liked making his mark permanent. Outside, the rain intensified, drops racing down my window in chaotic patterns. I felt that same chaos building inside me. Rage and heartbreak colliding into something focused and dangerous. Grandma used to say, when someone steals from you, they're not just taking your possessions, they're showing you exactly who they are. Now I finally saw Keith clearly. Douglas cleared his throat. Listen, Daniela, don't confront him yet. If he falsified legal documents, we need ironclad evidence. I'll start pulling county records and transaction histories. You just need to stay quiet for now. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Okay, I said, my voice eerily calm, and just find out how deep this goes. After we hung up, silence filled my studio apartment. The kind that vibrates in your ribcage. I stared at my trembling hands hovering over the keyboard. This wasn't just about property. This was about every family dinner where Keith had outshone me. Every disappointed look when I chose art over finance. Every time Dad said, "Why can't you be more practical?" Maybe I wasn't practical, but I was determined. I spent the next 6 hours excavating old emails, Grandma's letters, digital scans, even photographs of her handwriting from birthday cards. Every loop, every flourish became evidence. When I laid them side by side, the differences screamed at me. The forged signature looked almost perfect. Almost. That almost would be his downfall. By 2 a.m., I was surrounded by printouts and cold coffee. I sent Douglas the comparison images with one line. She believed I wouldn't notice. He was wrong. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from an unknown number. "You're asking dangerous questions." I froze, staring at those 6 words glowing on my screen. No name, no context, just that single threatening sentence. My heart hammered as I typed back. "Who is this?" The 3 dots appeared, pulsed, then vanished. Nothing. The next morning, my phone lit up with a name I'd been avoiding. Keith. For 90 seconds, I watched his name flash on my screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it. The other part, curiosity, anger, maybe both, made me answer. "Danny!" His voice burst through, smooth and cheerful. "You won't believe the deal I just closed. Grandma's condo. Sold it last Thursday, all cash, 400 grand, clean transaction." My fingers tightened around my phone. "You sold it?" "Yep," he said proudly. "The buyer loved the Bayview, and hey, I wanted to let you know I'm wiring you $50,000 next week. I figured you could use some help with that tiny apartment you're renting." $50,000 from my $400,000 inheritance. "Keith," I said slowly, deliberately, "you do realize that Condo was mine?" He laughed like I'd told a joke. "Come on, Danny. Grandma wanted us to share everything. You're across the country chasing design gigs. I handled the heavy lifting like I always do." "You forged her signature," I said flatly. His tone shifted instantly, sharper, colder. "Careful. You don't know what you're talking about." I took a measured breath. "Actually, I do. Douglas found inconsistencies, notary seals that don't exist, handwriting that doesn't match Grandma's." Silence. Then a forced chuckle. "You're being paranoid again. Maybe that lawyer wants more billable hours. Don't embarrass yourself over nothing." He hung up before I could respond. For several seconds, I stood there staring at my reflection in the rain-streaked window. My heartbeat wasn't racing, it was steady, terrifyingly steady. I replayed the entire call and pressed record on my backup recording app. Proof. His arrogance had handed me exactly what I needed. When Dad called that evening, I almost let it go to voicemail. But guilt, that old familiar weight, made me answer. "Sweetheart," he said warmly. "Keith told me about Grandma's condo. Such a relief to have that settled." "Settled?" I repeated, my voice hollow. "He's been working non-stop," Dad continued. "You should be grateful. He protected the family asset." "Protected?" I swallowed the acid in my throat. "Did he mention who actually inherited it?" A pause. "He said Grandma split it between you both." I closed my eyes. "And that's not true, Dad. She left it solely to me." "Oh, Daniela." He sighed, tired, disappointed. Why create problems? Keith handled everything properly. Just let it go. The call ended before I could defend myself. For a long time, I sat in the quiet, listening to the hum of my refrigerator and the distant sound of Seattle traffic. They thought I was emotional, impractical, the foolish girl who chose creativity over stability. But stability was about to crumble around them. I opened a new folder on my laptop and labeled it Truth. Inside, I began organizing files, recordings, letters, handwriting comparisons. This time, I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was building a weapon. Douglas called 3 days later, his tone crisp and controlled. Daniela, we filed the fraud report. The court issued an immediate freeze on the sale proceeds. Keith's about to get served. I press the phone against my ear, then we wait. But we didn't wait long. By noon, my phone exploded. Call after call after call. Keith. I let them all ring through, watching the notifications stack like dominoes waiting to fall. 10 missed calls, then 18, then 27. Finally, I answered. What the hell did you do? He screamed, his voice raw with panic. I don't know, I said evenly. Why don't you explain? Don't play dumb, Danny. The bank froze my accounts this morning. Do you understand what you've done? I didn't do anything, I replied. The truth did. Silence. Then bitter laughter. You've lost your mind. You think you can destroy me? You're delusional. You stole what Grandma left me, I said coldly. You forged her name and pocketed the money. Don't act shocked when consequences arrive. His voice cracked. You were never responsible enough to handle that property. I managed it for the family like I always do. By stealing from me? By keeping you from embarrassing yourself, he snapped. You live in another state making website graphics and drinking overpriced coffee. You don't deserve that condo. My hand tightened around my phone. And you do? Someone had to act like an adult, he hissed. You never grew up. Something inside me broke quietly, completely. You know what, Keith? Maybe I didn't. But Grandma trusted me. And you didn't just steal money, you stole her memory. He hung up. The silence after felt heavier than his voice. Minutes later, Dad called. Daniela, what's happening? Keith's devastated. He says you filed fraud charges. Is that true? It's true, I said softly, because he forged Grandma's documents. Don't be ridiculous, Dad snapped. Your brother would never. He's been handling everything responsibly. You know how emotional you get. Dad, this isn't emotion, it's evidence. Douglas verified everything. Keith even admitted it on a recorded call. You recorded your brother? Yes, I said, the word cutting through the air. Because nobody ever believes me unless I prove it. A pause, then that familiar sigh, the one that had followed me since childhood. You used to be kind, he said finally. I don't know what happened to you. The call ended, leaving me alone with the rain in my reflection, cold, unfamiliar, unwavering. 2 nights later, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the name. Brandon Pierce, Keith's best friend since college. I answered cautiously. Brandon. Hey, Daniela, he said quietly, his usual confidence gone. I hope this isn't out of line, but you deserve to know the truth. I stayed silent. I didn't know what he'd done, Brandon continued. He told me you'd signed off on everything. I didn't question it until the frozen accounts, the legal notices, then I started digging. He exhaled heavily. He forged it, Daniela. The will, the notary, everything. He told me you wouldn't notice from Seattle. I closed my eyes. I confronted him yesterday, Brandon said. He broke down, said he deserved it more, that he'd worked harder. He already spent part of the money on a Tesla. The world went silent around me. And you're telling me this now because I can't lie for him anymore. I'll testify if it goes to court. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Thank you. You don't need to thank me, he said softly. You were right all along. When the call ended, I sat in the darkness watching rain slide down my window. A strange calm settled over me. Not joy, not triumph, just clarity. Douglas called the next morning. Brandon's cooperating. We've got everything we need. The buyers are willing to testify too. If we move now, it's airtight. Do it, I said. Hours later, Keith's attorney reached out. They want to settle, Douglas explained. He's offering $200,000 if you drop the case. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Half of what he stole? No. He's desperate, Douglas said. But if we go to trial, they'll claim Grandma wasn't mentally competent when she wrote the will. I don't care, I said. I'm done keeping peace at my own expense. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened the last email Grandma ever sent me. Her words glowed against the darkness. If I ever leave you something, no, it's not charity. It's a promise. A promise that you'll keep living boldly. That's when I knew exactly what to do. The next morning, I told Douglas, I'll settle, but on my terms. 4 things, I said. First, he writes a notarized confession admitting everything. Second, he repays every cent to the buyers from his personal funds. Third, he sends a letter to Dad explaining what he did. Fourth, he legally agrees never to contest another inheritance again. Douglas smiled slowly. Poetic and brutal. I'll draft it. By evening, he called back. He agreed he's signing now. His lawyer said he just wants it over. When the PDF arrived, I opened it with shaking hands. The first line read, I, Keith Harrison, acknowledge that I falsified legal documents related to the estate of Sylvia Harrison. His handwriting looked small, defeated. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Douglas. Justice served, but victory didn't taste sweet. It tasted heavy, like rain-soaked air before a storm finally breaks. Because justice doesn't erase betrayal. It only proves you were right. 2 weeks later, Douglas called again. It's official. The property's back in your name, funds released, buyers reimbursed. I walked to my window, watching Seattle's morning sun break through the clouds. What will you do now? He asked. Sell it, I said quietly. Grandma didn't leave it for me to cling to. She left it for me to move forward. When the payment cleared, I stared at the balance. $415,000, but it wasn't the number that made me cry. It was what it represented. Belief. I quit my freelance grind 2 weeks later and opened my own design studio. Sylvia Creative. One desk, one dream, finally mine. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. A month later, a package arrived from Miami. Dad's handwriting on the label. Inside was Grandma's jade bracelet and a folded note. She would want you to have this. I turned it over, tracing the engraving. The world is waiting. Keith moved back near our parents, sold his Tesla at a loss, and started therapy. I didn't hate him anymore. I just hoped he learned what Grandma taught me. That integrity is worth more than anything you can steal. One morning, sunlight warmed my studio desk, catching the jade on my wrist. I smiled, whispering, I made it, Grandma. Outside, Seattle buzzed with possibility. New clients, new beginnings, a life that finally fit. If you've ever had to fight for what's right, tell me, was it worth